Hey everyone, Mike Wolf here. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about a topic that not a lot of people know about actually. It's kind of, it's in a way an undiscovered secret. It's coming to light a little bit more. People are talking about it a little bit more lately, but in general there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And what it is tax liens and deeds. And first of all, when a municipality does not get their property tax dollars, they need this money for their streets and schools and policemen and fire department. They usually don't have a lot of extra money lying around, so they need this money ASAP. So what they do when somebody doesn't pay their property taxes is they will sometimes put their home up for auction to get this money as quick as possible because they need that right away. They can't tell their teachers, "Oh, we're not going to pay you until Joe Smith pays his property taxes." So they need this money as soon as possible. So what they're going to do is they're going to put either a lien up for sale. They're going to sell you basically a note for all intents and purposes, or they're going to sell you the deed to a property. And first of all, let me tell you why there's a lot of misinformation, or why a lot of people don't even know about it, and why people who do know about it, some of them may even think it's a scam. Well, first of all, there's not a lot of people that can profit off of this. So your realtor's not going to tell you about this. Your realtor might not even know about it himself. But if they do, if you're thinking of buying a property in Phoenix, for example, and you buy something on the MLS through them, well, they get a paycheck. If you were to go to the tax lien or deed auction in whatever city and buy a property there, well, your realtor doesn't make a dime off of that. So they don't want you to know about it. For the most part, there's nobody that really makes money off of this. There's no middleman. If you're buying stocks, there's a stockbroker, or there's an online. Somebody is making money somewhere in the middle. With this, there's nobody between you and the county that's auctioning off this home. So a lot of people, it's not in their best interest for you to know how to do it. So that's number one. Number two, the people who do know how to do it, a lot of them are doing things like infomercials saying, "Hey, we'll show you how to buy homes for pennies on the dollar." And just their approach for teaching it seems a little shady, and it seems too good to be true. So I'm going to tell you all the truths about this strategy, because it's a very, you can literally get properties for pennies on the dollar. But there's a lot of things you need to know. It's not as simple as they make it sound, where you just go to the auction, every house is going to be a great deal, and that there's no pitfalls, because there certainly are. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the distinction between liens and deeds, because these are two totally different things. So a lien is anything that's registered on title is considered a lien, anything such as any kind of encumbrance. So for instance, when you take out a mortgage on your home, the bank is going to put a lien against your property, and basically that will stop you from reselling the property till you deal with that lien. So let's say you had a mortgage on your home, you put it up for sale, it sells. The first thing the lawyer is going to do before they hand you over a check is they're going to pay off all the liens and make sure everybody's satisfied. They can't give clear title to somebody else till all these things are paid off. So if the municipality were to put a lien against your property for unpaid property taxes, you can't do anything without dealing with them first, because your lawyer has to contact them, or the title company in the U.S. has to contact the lien holder and make sure that whatever's on there can be satisfied and removed, so that the purchaser of your home will have clear title when the transaction is completed. So what the municipality will do is they will put a lien against the property. It'll show up on title saying there's X amount owing. They're also going to toss a penalty on there. And this is where it's really cool to be the investor, because let's say, for example, I'm going to use, let's say, 16%. And this varies. The rate of return, basically this is a penalty. So let's say I didn't pay my property taxes and I owed $2,000. Well, after it becomes delinquent, depending on the county, and they don't all do it exactly the same, but they're going to assess a certain amount of penalty on there. Now, putting on the penalty is great, but that still doesn't help the municipality to have the money that they need. So what they're going to do is they're going to sell it off to us as investors. So they're going to say, "Hey, if you want to buy this for $2,000, we'll let you keep the penalty when these people eventually pay." So the good thing about a lien is that you don't actually have to deal with the homeowner. You don't have to deal with anybody. If you're the high bidder, let's say, there's numerous ways to get these liens, and we're not going to go into all the details on how every county does it, because there's lots of different ways that these will take place. But if you're the high bidder and it was 16%, you're going to get all your money back plus that 16% when the homeowner eventually pays off the arrears. Now, with most liens, if you're doing your homework properly, you're usually going to get this rate of return and not the home. So the vast majority of these people, they're not going to lose their home over a few $1,000s. They're going to pay you back. And this is where some of your homework comes in, is to make sure it's something that somebody actually wants. If the lien is attached to a vacant piece of land, and sometimes builders, what they do is, they put homes on all the piece of land, but sometimes they have a little strip left over that's of no use to them, not big enough to put a house on. There's nothing you can do with that piece of land. Or sometimes it's just kind of a right-of-way piece of property. Let's say you found a piece of land that was a mile long and a foot wide. Well, there's nothing you can do with that piece of land. There's no value to it, so you're probably not going to get your money back. Nobody's going to redeem that. They don't want that land. They don't want the tax liability each year, so they're not probably going to redeem. So in that case, you have the option, and we're going to get to that. If somebody doesn't pay back the money owed to the county after a certain amount of time, and that varies from county to county, you would be in a position where you could foreclose and get that property. Now, with ownership comes certain issues. As soon as you own that property, now you're responsible for the property taxes. So if it's a property of zero value and you're paying taxes every year, now you're stuck with it. So you wouldn't want to foreclose on it, but you probably wouldn't even want to buy the lien on it in the first place. So this is some of the stuff that I am going to teach you. So the thing you need to know is this varies from place to place, the amount of penalty and the return. Some places this would be added on immediately, so if they pay a day late, 16% a day later. Others is prorated, so per day you're going to get a portion of this. So, and you can actually get some of these liens starting at several $100s. Now, I don't recommend you buy the really, really cheap liens in most cases, because let's say you bought a $200 lien, well, after a year you've made $32, and if it was 16%, you're going to make $32, and there's certain fees involved in buying the lists and doing the homework and time. There's no point doing work to make $32. The only time you would buy a really cheap lien is if you thought there's a really good chance you're going to get the property. So imagine you ended up with a property that you paid $200 for. Well, there's cases where that would make sense. There's cases where that would not make sense. So that's all I'm going to tell you about for now about liens. Now let's go on to deeds. A deed is exact opposite. You get ownership to the property immediately. So in the case of Texas, where I do a lot of my courses, I actually do a course where we take Canadians down there, teach them first of all the implications about being a Canadian investing in the U.S., and then we teach them how to do this specific strategy. And you're bidding on the deeds there. It's actually what's called a hybrid stake. It's called a redeemable deed. So at the end of the day, if you're the high bidder on the property there, you are now the owner officially. So your name will appear on title. However, as I mentioned, it is what's called a redeemable deed. So the homeowner actually has a 6-month redemption period in most cases. There are exceptions, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But for the most part, they're going to have a 6-month redemption period to either pay you back what you paid for their property, plus, in the case of Texas, 25%. So you're actually making, the worst case scenario is you're going to get 25% return on your money if they bail it out. If they don't bail it out, you end up with a property, and I teach you how to get these properties for pennies on the dollar for really, really cheap. So we're never going to bid anywhere close to market value, because that defeats the whole purpose of buying at an auction. So in a deed state, though, you will own the property right away. It's yours to do what you want with it. You can put a tenant in place, you could live in it. In the case of Texas, because it's redeemable, you probably want to wait 6 months before you do a whole lot. You can put a tenant there, start getting cash flow from day one, but you're probably not going to put it up for sale, because the people may come back and redeem it and get the property back. There are ways to still do it and make a profit with that. That's a whole other strategy. So that's the difference between liens and deeds. But the reason it's such a great strategy, if you know what you're doing, is that once again, you're never going to pay anywhere close to the retail price. There's no middleman involved, so there's nobody else you have to deal with. And the best part is, in most cases, the county does all the work for you. So you don't have to go chasing after the homeowner and say, hey, I've got your property. If you want to redeem it, you have to give me X amount of dollars. You don't have to do that. These people have to go to the county, pay it, and then the county's going to do all the heavy lifting for you. They're going to do all the work, and they're going to send you a check in the mail once it's been paid off. So if you know what you're doing, there's a lot of money to be made with this. So that's the basics of liens and deeds. Once again, there is a whole lot of due diligence steps, and this is something I teach on our tours. We do it typically 4 or 5 times a year, and we usually do it in Houston. And we teach you how to not just get properties at this deed auction in Houston, but also how to deal with the liens, how you can do this stuff over the computer in some cases, because we have what's called over-the-counter deals where you don't actually, it's not actually at an auction, it's actually online. And we're going to teach you how to do all this stuff. Plus, we're going to introduce you to our power team in Houston that's going to help you. They're on the ground there to help you out with, you know, property management once you get the properties, fixing it up. We have realtors that can help you evaluate the properties, because unless you know what it's worth, you have no idea what the maximum bid is that you're, you know, how high you're willing to go, unless you know what you can resell that property for in the future. They can also tell you what it's going to rent for. So these are all the things you need to know. So 3-day tour. First day is the classroom day. We spend the day going over all the theory, all the due diligence steps. I'm also going to bring in some of my power team members and introduce them to you, because you're welcome to use their, you know, to leverage their skills. Second day is what we call the treasure hunt, where we go cruising through the different neighborhoods. We're actually looking at the properties. I'm telling you why or why not for each property, whether you've been on it or not, how high you would go based on what we see. And once again, we're going to put into action all the stuff that we learned the first day. Then the third day, you get to actually attend the auction, and you'll be fully qualified at that point to bid at that auction if you wanted to, or you could just observe, because there is some strategy, learning how the different auctioneers, they all have their own styles, and you can also see how other people bid and kind of get a better feel for it. But if you want to, you could bid at that auction, or with the information you have, you can come back the next month. The auctions in Texas, in Houston, happen the first Tuesday of every single month, and this knowledge that we teach you, you can apply anywhere, not just in Texas, but I'm also going to give you some information to deal with the other states and other counties as well. And not only that, this stuff you can actually apply in Canada as well, although what you find is, because our economy is pretty vibrant still, you don't see a lot of these homes that actually make it to auction. They usually get bailed out by the homeowners or the banks that have their mortgages in place on these properties. They don't want to lose their mortgages, so they bail it out. In the States, not the case. In a lot of cases, the banks have too much on their plate. A lot of stuff is slipping through the cracks. You have a really good chance to get properties for pennies on the dollar, and if you do your work properly, you're going to have a clear title home. All the liens will drop off, so all the other liens. If you don't want to own the property, I can teach you how to just get returns like 16, 20, 24%, 25% in 6 months. And you can do it consistently. So once you know how to do this sort of thing, you're never going to want to put your money in things like GICs again, because this is very, very safe. This is all controlled by the government. The government mandates how it all works. They make the rules. So once you know how to do this, you're never going to play the stock market again. You're not going to put your money in GICs, and you're certainly not going to leave it sitting in the bank doing nothing. So I'm going to teach you how to do all this stuff. So I look forward to seeing you on my tours. Feel free to send me an email with any questions, or give me a call at 1-888-265-0662. It's 1-888-265-0662, and that's toll free anywhere in North America.